So,
Mike, I would like to say, if you excuse me, Mayor, I'd like to say that, first of all, I think we had a great moment last year when we did this negotiations on this contract. I thought it came out just fine. I think if one of these folks, and I will readily admit that a championship game is different than a lot of other games. But I think for any organization to come in and request an across-the-board every night extension until midnight is not going to get past this council. I just don't think it will. And I think if they want to ask for a 1-hour exemption on whatever day that day falls, like a Sunday night or a Saturday night or whatever it is, and they need a 1-hour exemption to make sure that that last championship game gets played, that's what they better request. Because if they request it for every night, I don't think in good faith with the citizens that we would be.
And that's exactly what this request will be. I mean, they've identified the dates. It's not they're not asking for the entire season.
but
They're
they're asking
asking,
for all the days of the tournament.
Let me ask you
but
this.
those tournaments are Friday, well, I don't know, I can't speak for the TCO.
Why would Triple Crown not ask for that? What's the difference between those? I mean, can you find out? Perhaps that's the.
I could try. That's to do with their scheduling styles.
Now, are you talking both Triple Crown? There's 2 Triple Crowns coming, right? The Triple Crown on March 7th through 9th?
There's
and
actually
Triple Crown NTX shootout on May 23rd through 25th?
those are the only ones I put down. No, they're coming again after that. But
I
those
mean,
are the only ones.
But they don't want a variance?
No,
Okay.
they do
Can
not.
you find out why they don't want it and perhaps why they need it? I mean,
Yes.
just see perhaps if there's a different.
Adam, I would
There's some
just ask, when
alterations.
these other people come to you and they want this, you need to be pretty clear that what they can expect.
I thought there might be some resistance.
I'd just like to mention that I have 5 different letters from people that asked to be included in the minutes. I'm not going to read all the details. All 5 were opposed to doing this. I can give you the names. Do we need to do the names specifically, or?
We'll enter
You'll enter them all
of
in the
those
minutes.
emails into the minutes.
Essentially, there were 5 different people that were very specifically opposed to the 12. And I'm thinking that we need to provide some guidance to the committee. So, as you said, they don't have any reason to reject it at this
So I
point.
think we just got some, I mean, I heard from Commissioner Mayer, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I heard specificity is very important.
Right. And, I mean, we
Find out why one doesn't, right.
yeah, because if they can schedule it, maybe they need to do some training and scheduling. But I don't know why one can and one can't. I do understand the difficulty when, and believe me, I've heard loud and clear from some people who had to shut the lights off and not be able to finish that championship game, and that wasn't really good either. But I would only, if I considered it, would only be on that one night, not the others, because that's a scheduling issue. You need to figure out how to schedule it. We do have a number of
Can I say
people.
one other thing to our citizens? What's being requested is not a change to the existing ordinance. The existing ordinance allows the lights, anybody to request. It's kind of like developers coming in and wanting to do, whether you agree with it or not, they get to ask, and that's their right. But this light ordinance applies to everything in the town. It's not just baseball. If we wanted to have, as I said to y'all earlier, if we wanted to have a Willie Nelson concert out here, they'd have to get a variance if they wanted to be on, and
We just shut them down by 10.
they'd be flying high, so it wouldn't matter. But it's not a change to the existing ordinance. It would be a request.
Yeah, because when we did the ordinance, we did allow for those requests.
As I also recall, if I may,
Well, just,
there was a discussion of only having about 4 tournaments a year as well in that
Right.
discussion. Just one, just a second.
Madam Mayor, if I might, one more thing. Comments that Mrs. Buck made about trash, noise, peeling out. That's something we can do and look into immediately.
Yes.
And we will.
I appreciate that. Okay,
Jean Buck, 2401 Lilyfield. Just a couple of remarks, and I think you also know how I feel about the situation. First, I appreciate your comments, Mr. Sly, regarding coming and policing some of the activity that I mentioned from the ordinance that was passed last year. But in 3 years that I've lived where I live, only 2 council members sitting here have actually stepped in my backyard and taken a look at what's been there. I've never seen anyone take a walk around the property. I'm sure it's happened, but you've got a lot of people in front of you tonight who have voiced their concerns, and they're legitimate. It would be nice, in the spirit of communication and collaboration, if we could have some staff support beyond Adam Adams texting at 11 o'clock at night to show that you mean what you say tonight. I do believe you, but I think this neighborhood really needs to see what you're talking about. Secondly, I'll echo the comments that were made about a scheduling expert. Right now, as I look at it, there are 14 to 15 hours of play every day that are allowed for. Anything that comes before a subcommittee should be exceptional, and I don't know that that's actually occurring. Adam, if you're telling me you're going to rubber stamp anyone who makes a request and say yes, and make that staff recommendation at the bottom of your agenda item with a stamp that says, yeah, go for it, and leave it up to the council, that to me is a breakdown in maybe town governance. I would encourage you to think about what your recommendation might be to this council, and I also have a recommendation for the council. To this date and time, I have almost 4 years lived at this house. Have you ever considered having someone from Lilyfield Drive sit on that subcommittee, since we're so impacted and affected by all of this? I know you regularly engage baseball and get their feedback and their opinions, but have you ever entertained having somebody from my street come in and talk to Parks and Rec in a formal way and do that? I would be
I
willing.
think I suggested that earlier.
There's
Okay.
2 committees, I think. One's a special event, one's the subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah, there's,
And has that been recommended to either of them?
That was the suggestion I made earlier, that we
Did,
put someone
okay.
on that
I'm sorry I
committee.
missed that, Madam Mayor. The last thing I want to do is address Mr. Hall. And I'll address my comments to you through this council. I'm a little taken aback by your attitude and your aggression towards this council and our mayor. I suppose I shouldn't be, because about a year ago, I had a conversation with Mr. Hall in the lobby of this building. And I was going to him as a citizen to a citizen, not an affected citizen to the president of the Baseball Association. I just wanted him to understand what it feels like to have laid out $500,000 for a home and pay these taxes, and to know that, you know, I get lip service of empathy and 6 baseballs in my backyard with a toddler. And his comments to me, after much back and forth and probably a little bit of emotion on both of our part, was, what does it matter what the ordinance says? Don't you think I can just get these lights turned on and off whenever we need them to be? Now, that is my understanding of what was discussed. At that point, we agreed to end the conversation because it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't taped. It wasn't official. I hesitate to even bring that to you, but I think it's worth noting, just especially after what I just saw here, I wasn't really sure who was in charge. And it kind of, last year, it made me scratch my head. Now I'm scratching my head even more, and I just really encourage this council and the committees that work on behalf of all the residents of Trophy Club to think about what I just said. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to try with this name. Irfan Kawosa? Irfan?
I'll keep it brief. I love baseball. Let me introduce myself. 2425 Lilyfield Drive, Irfan Kawosa. And I truly love baseball. I have 3 little kids. One of them just started kindergarten, 2 more to come up, hopefully, God willing. So my only comment was regarding this whole situation. I know people are affected by the lights, about the disturbance, about the noise. I want you to, the council, to consider, and the Baseball Association to consider, if you are ending play at 11 o'clock at night and possibly considering taking it to midnight, what kind of message are we sending as a society? There are kids, you know, I go to South Lake once in a while. I see all of these young kids walking the town center without any supervision at all. We are doing the exact same thing in our town by encouraging kids to stay out that late, who next day have to go to school. I have to tell my child, who can look over the baseball fields when the child goes to bed at 7:30, I have to reason and argue with the child why the child needs to go to bed, whereas all these other kids are still playing. I'm not advocating that we move it back to 7:30 because my child goes to bed at 7:30, but I'd like for your consideration to consider that, you know, I'm objecting morally to this. I don't care about the noise and anything. I mean, there's a lot worse conditions that you can live in across the world, and we live in a great town. It's great living conditions, and if you got to put up with it, you know, a few nights a month or through a season, that's fine by me. Just consider what message as a society we're sending by allowing kids to be out till midnight, especially on a school night. We're not playing competitive baseball at a level where these kids are going to be making millions of dollars. We're talking about just encouraging spirits of sportsmanship that can be accomplished by 9, as one of the speakers pointed out. All of research indicates that you can, you know, none of the other sports associations go beyond 10. Even the Little League Baseball, which is the most competitive form of youngster sports, they wind up by 8 o'clock. Why are we going to 10 and 11 and considering going to midnight? Just for your consideration, I'd like all of you to consider it. And I love baseball.
Thank you.
Can I address that? I agree with what you just said in principle. As a parent, I would not have, my kids are grown now, but I wouldn't have had my kids out to midnight. But I believe that's a parent's decision to make and not a town council's decision to make. You could legitimately have a town council that thought we should have a curfew in town, that after 9 o'clock, children can't be out on the street. I agree with what you say, but as an elected official, I don't like Washington. I mean, I don't like Michelle Obama trying to tell us what we have to eat. There's enough intrusion by government into our lives, and I think if a parent, if it were my child would not be out playing baseball at midnight, I can assure you. But that's the decision that I think needs to be left with the parent and not the town council.
That can be a little difficult. I understand what you're saying, but I just have to say, if you have a child on a team and that team is going to be playing, you're going to be very hard pressed to tell that child he can't stay out. That would put a parent in a very difficult position. But that's
It's their
not our...
decision to make, not ours, in my opinion.
Okay. All right, so we're good on this because we don't have
We
any
have
other
one more
action.
speaker, Madam Mayor.
What?
We have one more speaker.
Okay.
I haven't got it to you yet.
All right, just say,
It's Julie Foley.
okay.
Julie Foley, 2407 Lilyfield Drive. I'm going to be very brief. I guess I didn't realize that it's Trophy Club Roanoke really does not play past 10 o'clock. So I think that that's great because we sort of do set those rules in town. However, where I have a problem is that we have these tournaments that are coming in and none of these children are from our town, and yet your town citizens who are paying the taxes are being put out for people who don't live here. So all I need to say is I would prefer that you would respectfully put our needs first before people who don't live in our town. Thank you.
Okay. And I will just repeat that the Triple Crown tournaments withdrew their request, so.
But they'll come back.
Well, and we will listen to that, so. We have heard, okay?